Hi, welcome back to chapter 2 of inking up and etching or a dry point plate a la Poupee. In this chapter I'm going to show you how to achieve this effect. On my plate I'm going to apply the different areas of color and blend them on the plate. Unlike the first print where we applied ink to very specific areas and inked up details in color. I call this, because I was taught that way, I call this inking up rainbow. I don't know if that's an artistically correct term, but that's what I call it. I start up by scraping on the ink, the brown ground base color, onto the plate. I've actually etched this plate quite heavily so the line is quite deep, which makes it easier to scrape it. I then take my dabber and I make sure that I've distributed the ink very evenly and that the ink is in all the lines. Remember, if you don't do this bit well, when you go to print, the lines that you did not fill with ink are going to show up white on your print, and that doesn't look good. Take my big ball of tarlatana, like in the previous print, and I clean off the ground color, the base color, which is brown in this case. Of course, the base doesn't have to be brown. Most of my prints have a mix of burnt sienna and red ochre as a base color, but that's up to different, that's up to what kind of taste you have. You can have a blue base color if you were going to put on the plate. If you, for example, you were going to ink up areas in pink or blues, if you put on a blue as a base color, you can actually mix and you can get different colors straight on the plate. But in this case, I want the line to be quite dark, so I have a brown base color. When I've cleaned off as much ink as I want to take away, and I'm basically down to that there's only ink in the line, I start off by putting on the pink of the tree. In this case I'm using my fingertip because I actually want quite a bit of ink here. When you see a rainbow plate, usually it's quite strong in color. I have my piece of pink tarlatana, the piece that I use for pink ink, and I'm spreading the ink, and here I'm being a little bit more vigorous with the pressure on the tarlatana because I don't mind that the pink ink really goes into the line. I want a blue background, so the bottom of the plate and where the actual bird is all being inked up in blue. This blue is now going to mix a little bit with the brown that's already in the line, and it softens the blue, which I think is very appropriate for this particular plate. It's like I say, when you do rainbow, if you want very strong colors, then maybe brown is not the perfect choice to have as a base color. Maybe you want to go for something that mixes better with the colors that you're going to use on top. I spread the ink with my piece of designated blue tarlatana, and I make sure that I blend where they meet quite well. I add a little bit of yellow to the bottom because I like the flowers and the grasses on the bottom to have more of a green tinge. This yellow I also blend in with the blue quite a lot. And of course, by mixing the blue ink with the yellow ink, I achieve the green effect. I take my bigger piece of tarlatana and I start working the actual blending. I'm not so interested in one particular area being a specific color here, but I do know that as I pull the pink down and the green up a little bit, the blue that I would like for the background, the more sky, actually is going to be so dissipated that it doesn't really come up blue. So I add a little bit more blue to those areas. Where the bird is, in the middle of the tree, there is mainly pink, so that's going to actually turn out more purple. And here in between the tree and the grasses and flowers on the bottom, I want the sky to be a little bit more blue. I spread this and I blend it with the other colors, but I do in the middle not spread it up or down. I do tend to keep the ink quite clean. Pull a little bit of the pink into where the bird is, because I do like that a bit more purple. Take my big ball of Talatana again, and very gently I take off quite a lot of ink. It's surprising how little ink needs to be on the plate for you to get a very, very colorful result. When you do a rainbow plate and you're mixing on the plate, you can make a personal choice if you actually want to use the tissue paper to smooth out those Talatana marks, scratches, stripes, whatever you want to call them. The Talatana is a piece of material and it does leave marks in the ink. In this case, I like the result because well, to me at least, this is a very romantic plate. So I like it to be quite smooth. So I do use my tissue paper just to take off the worst cases. If you look at the tissue paper, you'll see I'm only taking off a teeny weeny amount of ink. The reason to use the tissue paper is actually not to remove ink. It's only to smooth it out. The removal of the ink, that all happens with the Talatana. So don't confuse the two issues here. And remember, if there is an area here that you want to come up much lighter than the rest, you use either the old newspaper or the telephone book, because that heavier paper takes off quite a bit more ink than the tissue paper does. This plate actually has a relief on as a frame. Not on the plate, but as a frame it does have a relief. I actually don't ink up that relief. I just clean it off a little bit more with the Talatana. So I'm distributing the ink quite a bit, cleaning it off and not actually leaving much ink on. I only want this to print as a frame, as a complement to the actual print. Put all the inks on the plate. Blended all of it together. Remember, don't put too much ink on. Much easier to put a little bit more on than to take off a lot of a mess. If in the beginning you kind of think, oh my god, I just put too much on, do you know what? It's much easier for you to just clean it off and start again. So when I print it, that's going to be the result. I hope you've enjoyed watching Inking Up A Poupee, and I love comments and feedback. If there's anything that you want to ask me, just send me a comment or go to my Flickr account and get in touch with me through that. Thanks for watching.